I grew up in a family of very modest means. My father's income was 500 rupees a month. Only good thing I will say about myself, everything was bad. Everything I did was wrong. But the only good thing that I'll say about myself is that I learned my lesson. Because I got admission and I realized the value of hard work, and I said that I'm not going to put myself in this position again. My father wanted me to go to IIT Bombay, IIT. And let me tell you, I have very strong feelings against ragging. In America, it's called hazing. In my second year, I became a member of the student council. In my third year, I was GS of Hostel 4. In my fourth year, I was GS of the institute. In my fifth year, I was GS of the electrical engineering department. There was only one girl in the whole batch. So there was only one girl in the whole batch, and she's married to one of our classmates.
Yeah. Can you little bit tell us about your love story?
It was not.
How did you
It was actually an interesting story because Indian universities, because there was none. There were no PhD programs in India in business at that time. I had no desire to leave India. I had no desire.
journey is not that easy, I think so. There must be some challenges in between.
It is a lot of challenges.
Can you tell us something little about that?
A predominantly white institution had never had a black, brown, Hispanic, nothing, no president except for a white president in all of history. Now, now this 76, 77-year-old person is like a baby learning to play the piano for the first time.
It is just number.
That's right. That's right. Oh, ChatGPT. I use it, but rarely. I don't use it a lot. I use it rarely.
Yeah. Good morning, sir. How are
Good
you?
morning, Dhananjay. Although for you it's evening.
Yeah. So, guys, welcome back to the new episode of our podcast featuring great IIT Bombay alumni. I'm your host, Dhananjay Kara, the MTech graduate from IIT Bombay. Today, I'm truly honored to introduce our guest, none other than IIT Bombay Distribution alumni, Dr. Beheruz Sethna. Hello, sir. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I am fine, sir. So, Dr. Sethna is the first person of Indian origin ever to become president of American University, the University of West Georgia. During his 19-year tenure as a president, he also did two interim assignments as a senior and the executive vice chancellor of the entire state system, during which he had a functional responsibility for approximately 260,000 students and 10,000 faculty members in all 35 public institutions of the state. After leaving the presidency, he continued as UWG as a professor of business administration. He has won recognition in instructional innovations in nationwide competitions, among others, and has been personally honored by the universities and university president in China, Japan, Korea, Saudi Arabia, and countries in Europe. He has been named among the great immigrants to the United States of America. That's great. His academic journey is equally inspiring. He earned his BTech degree in electrical engineering from IIT Bombay in 1971. Also, post that he did MBA from Indian Institute of Management, Ahmedabad in 1973. After that, he earned his MPhil in 1975 and PhD in business in 1976 from Columbia University in New York. In addition, Sir has postdoctoral qualifications from Indiana University and Harvard University. With nearly 50 years of teaching experience, Dr. Sethna's impact on education and leadership has been truly exceptional. So, friends, let's dive into his journey and insights. To begin with, I would love to hear about your journey before joining IIT Bombay. So, sir, can you please tell us, our audience, about your childhood? From where do you belong to, and what was your father and mother doing at that time? So, over to you, sir.
Happy to do that. Thank you for that introduction. I was born and grew up in the city that was at that time known as Bombay.
Yeah,
My family was, I'm the only child, so I have no siblings. And my parents were very committed to the idea of education. I grew up in a family of very modest means. My father's income was 500 rupees a month, which
Okay.
was, even at that time, it was not a lot of money. Of course, that was a long time ago, so you have to add on some inflationary factors.
Yeah.
But that was our family income. So I grew up with just 500 rupees a month for the whole family. I always had food on the table. I was not starving or anything like that. Had a roof over my head. Had, all the needs were met thanks to my wonderful parents. But there was no cool stuff, what people consider today as cool stuff.
Yeah.
So I had no money to do the kinds of things that children growing up today believe is the norm. Um,
Correct.
my parents actually moved me from one school to another because it was a less expensive school. So I finished my schooling at St. Xavier's High School in Dobitalau, Bombay.
Okay.
And of course, you know that in India we have school uniforms, which is a good way of keeping the costs down. But
Yeah.
when
Yeah.
we first moved, I could not even afford those school uniforms. So I wore my cousin's old clothes. He was a senior student in the school for a little while before we could afford them. So I'm just giving you this situation to see that, to show that there was nothing, all the basic needs were met, but
Yeah.
there was nothing beyond that. There were no trips, there were no vacations. I would say that before I left for America, I probably had one vacation, what most people would consider a vacation. And that
Oh.
was because my aunts came into some money because someone died and left them some money, and they took me along on a cruise. So I went for a cruise. That was the only vacation that one would consider a real vacation. Otherwise, occasionally might stay at someone's house or something like that. So all those ideas that today's young people have about fun stuff and shoes, and of course in those days there was no cell phones. In fact, we didn't even have a phone at home. We had to go downstairs to a bakery to make phone calls. So I had no phone. Certainly in that time there was no TV. So none of the things that people take for granted today I had. We got our first TV when I was in graduate school, when I was doing my MBA in Ahmedabad. Only good thing I will say about myself, everything was bad. Everything I did was wrong. But the only good thing that I'll say about myself is that I learned my lesson, because I got admission and I realized the value of hard work, and I said that I'm not going to put myself in this position again. So I went from a 34 out of 100 to a good mark, and then ultimately IIT Bombay. I came home once I found a TV in my parents' room, and that was the first time as a MBA student that we had our first TV. So I'm giving you this background
Yeah.
to show that the kinds of stuff that young people take for granted today were not at all in my purview.
True. True. Yeah.
My parents actually, I remember my mother telling me this. It's such a long time ago, but I still remember it very clearly. She told me that they had very little money, and she told me that every spare penny that they had would go into my education. That was their vision. So I want to give full credit to my visionary and self-sacrificing parents so that I might have a better life. And that I don't, not one day goes by that I don't thank them for this. Of course, they are long gone, but I thank them every single day for having that vision.
Yeah.
It was when I was so I finished at St. Xavier School. I want to also tell a little bit something else about my high school
Yeah.
life. While I was a little kid, and my mother would make sure that I studied every day, I did well in school. So I used to many times come first, sometimes little lower than first, but I was doing very, very well in early days. Then when I got to high school, I started goofing off. When the parental influence got a little less, I didn't do anything bad, nothing that I'm ashamed of, but I didn't study. And I started doing worse and worse and worse.
Okay.
So much so that in my 10th standard, and those days the 11th was the metric when you pass out of school, SSC was 11, when you leave school and you go to college. And in my 10th standard, so my pre-final year,
Okay.
and I want to share this because it's important,
Yeah, I will
I
think
got
about
a
that.
total of 34 out of 100 in maths. 34
Maths.
out of 100.
Out of- Oh my God.
Uh, and uh, that was nobody. I'm not a bad teacher or can't blame anybody else except me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, because I just didn't study. Now that 34 was, I think, to the best of my recollection, it was a high grade in algebra, either 29 or 30, 4 or 5 marks in geometry out of 30, out of 35, and zero out of 30 in arithmetic. I don't know how anyone can get zero, but I managed it.
Oh my God.
So this was, and I just passed the year because I was goofing off in other subjects also,
Yeah,
and I
yeah.
got a very bad failing grade in Gujarati as well.
Gujarati.
And so I almost didn't pass the year. Fortunately, my high school had a thing that you can combine science and maths to see whether you can pass, and then you can combine languages together. So when you combine them, I got a passing grade, and so I passed the class, went into the 11th standard. This was the final year before college admissions. But at that point, my parents got really bothered by that, and the whole summer vacation I spent taking tuitions from a little old lady in the neighborhood. And she was quite a taskmaster. She used to work with me for 1 or 2 hours, then give me a ton of homework, which I had to do because next day she would ask to see it. So the whole vacation, I had zero vacation, deservedly so. But I started doing math and doing and understanding it for the first time. Fast forward 1 year, in my SSC exam, I got 95 out of 100. From 34, I went to 95.
That's great achievement that time.
And that is the value of hard work. Now, in the other subjects, I was still goofing off until the last moment. On, I think, 12 days before my SSC exams, I suddenly woke up and said, my goodness, I won't get admission into any good college if I continue this way. And so for those 12 days, I worked, and nobody's going to believe me, and that's okay, 20 hours a week. Everything
Oh my
else
God.
was crammed into sleep, eating. I ate at my desk, so everything else was about 4 to 5 hours, and I worked 19 to 20 hours a day, and I did that 12 days before the exam. And of course, the exam goes on for 8 days, different subjects. So let's say about 3 weeks, I went basically without sleep, without eating, without anything else, and I learned my lesson because I got a first class and got admission into the college of my choice, which was St. Xavier's College. So I went from St. Xavier's High School to St. Xavier's College in the science stream.
Yeah.
And I'm making that point because the day I woke up, I still remember that day. It was the 4th of March, 1964. And
my
I've never
God.
stopped working since that date. So which is, and electrical engineering is all mathematics. So I did learn my lesson. I worked very hard, struggled through IIT Bombay. And anyway,
Before
sorry,
going
I
to,
went beyond your time span, but now you ask your next question.
it's fine, totally fine, no issue. That looks very interesting journey of yours before joining IIT Bombay. Actually, I just wanted to ask you, like, we have audience who wanted to be part of IIT Bombay for their education, like for B.Tech, for M.Tech, or PhD, etc., etc. So, what kind of advice would you like to give them in order to get that IIT Bombay?
Well, of course, I have to confess I don't know the exam structure now.
Yeah, it's a JEE mains and JEE advance for
Yeah.
B.Tech.
So
Yeah, yeah,
in my time, there were just 2 days of 4 papers. That was it. There were not two different exams. There were just 4 subjects: um,
okay,
physics, chemistry, mathematics, and English. And
yeah,
each of them was, I think, a 3.5 hour paper, two on one day, two on the other. But I do want to say one thing before I get there. It was
yeah,
my parents' vision again. As I said, I can't stop saying enough good things about my parents. My parents'
yeah,
vision that I went to IIT Bombay. My father, when IIT had just started, see, I am in
oh,
the
yeah,
first ten batches of IIT. I forget when the first batch was, but I finished in 71 and I'm
yeah,
within the first 10 batches. So it was still very
okay,
new.
yeah,
Very new when I went in, very new when I started college, very, very new.
yeah,
So I
yeah,
started college, I went to college in 1964. Remember that date I gave you, 1964? So I went to
yeah,
college in 1964. After my first year of science,
yeah,
I applied and appeared for the IIT exam, and I got in, and
yeah,
I really didn't want to go to IIT. So here's another confession. So I'm making many confessions over here. So another
okay.
confession is I didn't want to go to IIT Bombay.
Why?
Everyone in India wants to go to IIT Bombay except this idiot here. So
My God.
I went, my father wanted me to go to IIT Bombay, IIT.
Oh,
And
okay.
so I studied for the entrance exam
Yeah,
because of my parents, because of my dad, my dad and mother. I did that purely to please them. Now, again, the one good thing I will say about myself is although I didn't want to, I didn't
uh-huh.
deliberately mess up the exam or anything like that. I really studied hard, and
Yeah,
obviously, I got in 1965. I got
yeah,
into IIT, but I didn't get electrical engineering in Bombay. In those days, when you went for the interview, this is not much of an interview, but they had a big blackboard kind of thing over there.
yeah,
And the blackboard had 5 IITs and 5 engineering. So it was a 5 by 5 matrix. And when something was filled, because the top people got the first choice, they put a little X in one of those blocks.
yeah,
So there was an X in electrical engineering in Bombay. I could have gone to another IIT for electrical, or I could have taken another engineering at IIT Bombay. In fact,
yeah.
when I went into the room, the professor in charge said he was a civil engineer. And he
Yeah.
said, you should take civil engineering. It's an IIT Bombay after all you've got. And I was very respectful to him, but I said, no, thank you. And I walked out of the room having turned down IIT. I did not
Sorry to
accept.
interrupt you. Why you wanted only electrical engineering at that time?
Oh,
What is the reason?
again, that was kind of probably not well based in anything except that I like to play with radios and tinker with. In those days, radios had valves, and I used to
Yeah, yeah,
open the back of the radio and tinker with this thing. So it was
yeah.
not a solid intellectual choice. It was
So
just
your
that
parents,
that's what I
your
wanted.
your parents
Sorry?
wanted to, your parents wanted you to go to the IIT, irrespective of
IIT,
any branch.
they had no pressure of, they had no pressure of the place, they had no pressure of the engineering. Everything, all of that came
Okay.
from me.
Yeah, yeah.
So I actually said no to IIT in 1965, and knowing how important this was to my father, I just phoned him from IIT. I
Yeah,
remember there was used to be those pay phones at IIT,
yeah.
and I
Payphone.
put
Yeah.
in the money and I phoned him and I said, "Look, I've turned down IIT," and there was dead silence at the other
Oh
end
my
because
God.
nobody turns down IIT. So when I came home, he was very, 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 very disappointed. But he was he simply said, well, if that's what you really want, next year you try again. And maybe this time you will get electrical in Bombay.
Sure.
But the next year, so next year I again got in again and I got a much higher rank. And
Yeah.
so this time he didn't trust me, so he came with me for that. He came with me to IIT and he came and he stood outside the room and he looked at that blackboard and he said, there are no X's. So you go in, you accept anything you want in any
Yeah.
place you want, and you come back with that piece of paper in your hand.
That's it.
So I
Yeah.
did. So I went to IIT only to please my parents. Now, I will say this, that at that age, we are talking of 1965. I was born in 1948. So I was still a young, relatively immature guy. I was not even 18 yet. And it is rather absurd for two people who are in their 40s, my parents, their combined wisdom should overrule, I think, the wisdom of a 16-year-old. So I realized that and I simply said, okay, I'm going to do it. And I joined IIT. So again, the story is this was the dream of my father. And later,
Father.
many,
Yeah.
many decades later, Obama wrote a book showing dreams of my father. And when he published that book, I said, I should have used that title myself because it's
Yeah.
true, it dreams of my father.
Yeah.
So I think his title was Dreams from My Father, but I thought of it as Dreams of My Father. So anyway, it was my parents' dream that I go to IIT. So I went to IIT and I struggled. I want to be very clear. It was not a breeze for me. I did reasonably well in my first couple of years, but the other part of my life then suddenly started to play. And then I got involved, very heavily involved in extracurricular activities. So I was general secretary of my hostel, then
Fantastic.
general
Yeah.
secretary of the whole institute. In those days, you didn't have
Right.
two general secretaries. Now, I think later on it became GS for social and DS for sports or something like that. In those days, there
Yeah.
was only one.
General Secretary, Cultural Affairs, Sport
So I
Affairs.
was
Yeah.
general
Right.
secretary for the institute, then I was general secretary for my department.
Yeah.
So I was definitely involved in student leadership. I was in NCC and reached the highest ranks in NCC. NCC is the National Cadet Corps. I don't know whether it still exists now.
Yeah. It is there. Yeah. It is there.
Okay. So I was very active in NCC and I was the highest ranked cadet in all of IIT. Even as a first year student, I outranked you had to do NCC for 3 years. So there's a 5-year program.
Yeah.
So first 3 years you had to do NCC. So, but as a first year student, because I'd been in St. Xavier's for 2 years, and I came in with a lot of advanced badges and things like that. So I was the most senior cadet in the entire campus, even as a freshman student, even a
Yeah.
fresher
Yeah.
student.
Yeah.
So I was very involved in extracurricular activities. Now, the reason why I'm interspersing these two areas of my life, I was also very involved in dramatics and won several gold medals in dramatics and stage plays. As general secretary of the hostel, we did something called Metamorphosis, which further led to Mood Indigo. So
Indigo. Yeah.
very, very heavily involved with extracurricular. Now, again, the reason I'm interspersing these, two reasons. One is that it definitely took away from study time. And so my studies, especially in the future years, I had to really struggle. But the second thing is it gave me that leadership training, which stood me in good stead throughout my career. So it was good and bad. So it had its negatives and its positives. But I'm okay with that. I don't have any regrets. But as I said, I was struggling a lot in my 4th year. which in those days, fourth year electrical was the toughest year in the whole curriculum, in any branch, anything. Fourth year electrical was the
In
toughest year.
entire IIT, you can say.
And at IIT Bombay, yeah.
Yeah.
So in my fourth year and my fifth year, I have no recollection of actually going to sleep on my bed. I only fell asleep out of exhaustion at my desk. And for 2 years, almost 2 years, I really didn't, except for vacations and so on, I didn't actually go to bed because I was so scared, afraid of my, and in those days, again, I don't know what it is. In those days, if you failed a single subject, even a lab, there was one guy who failed a lab and had to repeat the whole year. If you failed again, you were thrown out of IIT. So it was a very high pressure kind of thing. Very, very high pressure. So through all of this, I was struggling and I was not sleeping, not even eating properly. And I was very, very, just let me say, bring the story to an end, very, very relieved to pass through, to get through IIT because it was a big struggle for me. So anyway, that's roughly my IIT story. I graduated reasonably well, not at the top of the class, not at the bottom of the class, somewhere in between.
Yeah.
But that was my IIT story.
Yeah. Yeah. Actually, I wanted to ask you that when you entered first time in the campus, what was your reaction at that time?
The first time in the campus, it was impressive. It was impressive, the kind of facilities that IIT had, the main building. Of course, the first time I went to the campus, I just went for the interview in what was the main building. I didn't see anything else. And it was extremely impressive. It was new, it was exciting. That was my first impression of IIT. It was a very good, it was really, as I said, I forget when the IIT campus was opened. I'm trying to think, but it couldn't have been more than a few years before I entered in 1965. I came for the first time. 66, I came again. But when I came in 1965, the campus was really brand new. It was just a few years old. So it was an exciting, very, very impressive.
Yeah. Can you little bit tell about your hostel life, hostel friends,
Sure.
and yeah, hostel memories? Also, ragging was a part at that time.
Yes,
Yeah,
it was at a high level.
yeah,
But so let me tell you, I have very strong feelings against ragging. In America, it's called hazing. So I still absolutely disagree, disapprove of it. Fortunately for us, by the time we came in, the first year students came in a week before everyone else. So they deliberately had the first year students start 1 week early so that we would get to know the campus. Further coincidence that worked in my favor was that Hostel 4, where I was for my whole time at IIT, Hostel 4 was a relatively new hostel 4 years ago. So all the students had come there, and therefore all the seniors had graduated. And so when we came in, we had the vast majority. Remember, there were 5 years. So you think probability-wise, there'll be 20% in each year. We didn't have anywhere near 20%. We had the bulk of Hostel 4 was freshmen. So we decided, because we had a whole week to plan this, we decided that we were going to create systems and methods to keep away the seniors. And we had a very elaborate system of alerting people to come to help if you needed help and so on. We designed all this in the first few days. And it worked very well because the moment we had a bunch of seniors collect around one person after they came, just one shout will bring in about 20, 25, 30 people around them. So we had this down to a science, and I was right at the head of that. So much so that one day, my birthday, see, we started on roughly July 3rd, we started on July 5th, 5th of July, 1966 was our first day of class or first address by the director or whatever. My birthday is at the end of the month, July 31st. So shortly after we came, my mother sent a birthday cake to share with friends. So I brought the birthday cake and I wanted to share it with everyone. So one of my friends yelled out saying, "Hey, Beheruz has a birthday cake, come down and have." And that was interpreted as one of these calls for help. So all of the people came down to help, saying that this guy is being ragged or something like that. And I was not. It was just a friendly thing. So then I had so many people there that I had to give little small pieces of the birthday cake to everyone, which was fine. But I'm just saying that the system worked really well. And we had that designed and implemented perfectly. So the incidence of ragging in Hostel 4 in 1966 was small. And we have had a cohesive batch that even till today, we are in touch. This, of course, we came in 1966. We are approaching our 60th next year. Next year, this time, will be our 60th anniversary of joining, not of finishing. Yeah. And we are intending to have a reunion. So we have a very cohesive group. So Hostel 4 has a rich tradition of sticking with each other, helping each other, and so on. So it's very, very good. Even today, I am very proud of my classmates and my batchmates, and many of them have done exceptionally well. And are major contributors to the institution and so on. So it's really very, very good. So Hostel 4 was a very exciting time for me. As I said, in my second year, I became a member of the student council. In my third year, I was GS of Hostel 4. In my fourth year, I was GS of the institute. In my fifth year, I was GS of the electrical engineering department. So I have thoroughly embraced the student life at IIT. I will tell you this, that we did a lot of things. We designed an institute tie for the whole institution when I was GS. We designed a Hostel 4 logo. We created a system of hostel colors. All of these things still exist. This is amazing. I mean, this is mind-blowing.
Really
Not
amazing.
the tie. I don't think anything, but the Hostel 4 logo still exists. So I was there for my 50th reunion, which didn't take place 50 years, took place 52 years after we graduated, or 51 and a half because of the pandemic. But I was walking through the corridors of Hostel 4, and I saw people with the Hostel 4 logo that I had helped design more than 50 years ago. So it's so satisfying. So I sat down with them and I told them the story of the logo. And they were very pleased to hear that background, from half a century ago. So I really enjoyed and threw myself into campus life. As I said, in all forms. Leadership activities with GS, dramatics, staging plays, NCC, everything, you name it, I was in it. So
Everywhere.
yeah,
Everywhere.
and I enjoyed that very much.
So doing all these things during the campus back then. So any love story at the campus?
Any what?
Love story? Any girl you like? Any
Oh,
love
girl,
story
there was only one girl in the whole batch. So there was only one girl in the whole batch, and she's married to one of our classmates. So that
Who's
that
that?
love story came with the two of them, and that was wonderful. That was great. So I had girlfriends in Bombay. So my social life was not at IIT but at Bombay. But so yeah, I did have girlfriends. Now, when I went to IIM as a second year student, I met a
Sir,
girl
Professor,
at
we will come
IIM. Yeah.
there.
Go ahead.
We will
I'll
come
wait.
there. We will come there.
All
Okay.
right.
Yeah. Actually, one advice to the current students at IIT Bombay that you wanted to give them.
I have to give two because my life was divided into those two parts, so I have to give two.
Okay.
Certainly
Okay.
study hard.
Please.
Don't be a goof off in your studies because you have to graduate and you have to have a reasonably strong academic resume
Yeah.
and get involved. So I have to give these two. I believe that both these things made me strong. I really do. If I had to choose between the two, I could not choose. Obviously, I wouldn't want to do any worse than I did because I would have probably flunked out. But I'm not sure that I was driven by being at the top of the class or anything like that. That was not a motivator for me. I wanted to be very good at what I did in extracurricular. I wanted to be because I was GS, I was the most decorated cadet in terms of things I'd passed. I was good at dramatics, more gold medals. So I wanted to be good in what I did. I wanted to be best in something. So that's my advice. Be excellent in a couple of
Yeah.
things. It doesn't
Sure.
matter whether that's academics or something else, but be excellent in something.
Wherever you will go, be excellent in that. That's you
Yes.
are actually
Yeah.
telling to the audience. Yeah. Right. So yeah. So we completed the IIT Bombay part. So that's like great. We now completed the IIT Bombay journey successfully. Now we will discuss the post IIT Bombay journey. Okay. After the IIT Bombay, there were so many options. Like you can have done MTech from IITs also, or MS from foreign also, or you can write a UPS Union Public Service Commission to write a civil servant kind of things.
That
Entrepreneur
was never
also.
in my, I never even thought of that. But I did, like lots of people in my class did, between the fourth year and the fifth year, you studied for and you took the GRE. That was the
Yeah.
standard thing. So
Yeah.
I did that. I took the GRE, did well in the GRE, both the advanced and the aptitude. In those days, there were two: advanced, which was engineering, and the aptitude, and started applying for American admissions.
Okay.
So I wanted to go to America at that time. And then in my fifth year, I took a course. We had no electives all through the thing except in the final year. So I took an
Okay.
elective course called business management.
Okay.
And for the first time at IIT, I actually was really good at an academic course. Otherwise, I was always okay or not
Okay.
okay. But this time I excelled. So I
Okay.
started wondering whether I want to spend the rest of my life as an electrical engineer or not. So that was the first time that that doubt came into my mind. I was an average electrical engineer, slightly above average, I would say, slightly above average electrical engineer. That one course said that I could be great in some other field. So
Yeah.
I started really rethinking. After all these applications were already in, I'd already submitted applications.
Okay.
So then again, I went home one weekend and spoke with my parents. And I said, look, I'm really rethinking this whole thing. Everything I have planned, which is to be an electrical engineer. I also, by the way, applied for a couple of jobs and got a couple of jobs as electrical engineering.
Okay.
Engineering training. You in those days
Yeah.
after
Yeah.
IIT, you got an engineering training.
Yes.
So I got a job at Usha Fans and one other place, and I've forgotten.
Okay.
But through this, now I'm beginning to think, is this really what I want to do? And then again, my father said, well, there's this new place called Indian Institute of Management, Ahmedabad, which was again a very new place. So I'm in the first 10 batches of IIT Bombay and the first 10 batches of IIM Ahmedabad. So I said, okay, I don't particularly want to go all the way to Ahmedabad, but I'll take the exam and so on.
Uh-huh.
I also applied for Bajaj in Bombay
Yeah. Bajaj.
and got into Bajaj. Now, here's a thing that is quite an amazing event. So I'm a Bombay boy, really. I mean, that's what I am. So I didn't want to leave Bombay. I knew that IIM Ahmedabad was better, but the Bajaj Institute was pretty good too, and I had that secure admission. So the time came when my father had to pay the fees at Bajaj, because that was a secure admission. And he said, look, you have to decide, because I can't afford. We see, remember, my family circumstances hadn't changed because we still didn't have much money. So my father said, I can't pay that fee at Bajaj and then you not use it. We can't afford to do both. So we always were worried about money, which he was right, of course.
Yeah.
I should have said this before, at IIT, when I was at IIT, I did apply for MS admissions, and my father was very clear with me. Actually, at one point, I even applied for bachelor's degree admissions. My father was very clear that he didn't have the money. I mean, he made it very clear. He said, if you get scholarships, that's fine, but bachelor's degree, nobody gives scholarships. So it was difficult for him to have to sit me down and tell me, look, we can't afford this. But I think that's okay. I really do think that's okay. I never had any problem with that. So again, for MS, it was very clear that my parents could not have afforded it. So anything I did, it had to be with scholarships. I mean, so I was stuck between this whole thing. There were foreign admissions, there was Bajaj, and at a critical point, IIM admissions were coming out, and a couple of people in my hostel got admission into IIM Ahmedabad.
Okay.
And my letter hadn't come.
Why?
And we didn't know why, but it didn't come.
Okay.
So it turns out, give you the sequel to the story, the letter was just lost. They had sent it to me. I was in the first batch of admissions. There was not, but it just didn't arrive. So my father actually asked some peon or someone to go to IIM and check. And he phoned my father from Ahmedabad to say, yeah, he's in. He's been admitted. So I simply didn't get the letter in time, not in time because there was no rush, but I didn't get the letter in the first 2 or 3 days. That's all. It got lost for 3 days maybe.
Oh my God.
But those 3 days made me realize something, that's what I really wanted to do. When you don't have something, that makes you realize. So the moment I got confirmation, I said, now the choice is clear, not going to Bajaj, I'm going to Ahmedabad. And I'm glad I did. So it was a coincidence that, and I thank goodness for that lost letter, because I may not have made that decision otherwise.
Yeah. So, Professor, coming to the IIM Ahmedabad, what are the challenges and learnings at IIM Ahmedabad, and how the IIM learning is different from IITs?
Entirely different. That was huge, like a mind-blowing difference. So, because in IIT, especially in electrical engineering, everything was mathematical, just everything. There was one right answer. So when we went to IIM, it was a big joke among IIT people. We learned the phrase for the first time, it depends. So we used to laugh about that. So in management, in business, things depend upon a variety of things. It's not always a mathematics. So there's a big joke to us, because although theoretically we knew the English phrase, we had never actually heard it depends. So we used to think of it as a big joke. But anyway, there were a lot of other factors. It was mathematical, yes, but you have to add a lot of factors. So much so, till today, I teach at the university level highly quantitative statistical based course in marketing research. That's my field.
Oh, nice.
And I do a lot of statistics and quantitative stuff with my students, but I tell them that when you write your final report, and this is an actual quote that I use, I want all the geek stuff, but I also want the gut stuff. The gut. What does your gut say? Okay, you've done the calculations. Now I want to hear what your gut is saying based on these calculations. So I believe in that combination of things. So IIM was quite a revelation for me. It was a different experience. Some of the subjects, one of the first subjects I took was economics, and that was a disaster for me. Although I'd had an economics course or courses in IIT, they were more quantitative and I was comfortable with that. The economics courses I had at IIM were a disaster because we had people who had had 4 years of economics from the Delhi School of Economics and so on, and they were our classmates and they were just on a different planet in terms of their... So I did very badly in my first exam. My first midterm at IIM was a disaster. So I went to my professor and said, look, can you give me some extra work to do to make up for that? And he did. He gave me a project, and I'm very grateful to him, even at this stage, that he gave me that opportunity, and I did. I got a B in his class, which was good. So I passed the class. But IIM was a completely different experience. It was full of case studies, which we never saw at IIT, a lot of really good broadening experiences. So I started really doing well at IIM, and that was the first time since I'd been in the second or third or fifth standard in school that I actually started doing well. And I was not at the top of the class, but I was within the first 10 students in my first year. And these are all very good students. So I'm very happy being in the top 10 students, both in my first year and in my second year. So I did well. But the other thing that happened to me was that at the start of my second year, a friend of mine introduced me to an incoming first-year student.
Okay.
And her name was Madhvi. And we met, I remember, the foot of the steps. And to cut a long story short, we've been married for 51 years since that. So we got married after she finished IIM. She was 1 year behind me. And we married, we've just had our 51st wedding anniversary. So for me, IIM was a great education. It was a great springboard because I used that to come to America. But also on the personal front, it gave me my wife of 51 years and counting.
Yeah. Can you little bit tell us about your love story so that our audience will get
It
idea?
was not,
How did you
it
reach?
was actually an interesting story because it was not so much a love story as a very deep friendship story. I will tell you about it. Because for the first, I would say most of the time, we would just generally, we would wave to each other. There was nothing. There was nothing there. And then the time came for me to leave IIM, and she was just finishing her first year. And I had already by the time actually just before the graduation ceremony, I got this admission and big scholarship to Columbia University. So I knew I was going abroad. And I suddenly said to myself, what about my love life kind of thing? And I didn't have anything at that time. So fortunately for me, of course, we finished IIM. IIM finishes in late March or early April. It's a different calendar. So we were done. For 3 months, I worked in an advertising agency, writing case studies for someone in the advertising world before I went to America. And Madhvi had her summer training, because between her first year and her second year, summer training takes place, which I had also gone through previously. But she had that in Bombay, although she was an Ahmedabad girl. She had that in Bombay. And occasionally we would meet, and again, only in groups.
Yeah.
But then we started to talk, and actually not so much talk, but just write letters. And she came from a different rung of society. First of all, she's a Gujarati, and I'm a Parsi. So that's one thing. Then she came from a much higher stratum of society. Her father was very wealthy. Her father was a prominent attorney, lawyer, advocate, acting advocate general of Gujarat state, very, very prominent. And so we were at different worlds. But so she started meeting boys on the Gujarati circuit for the following year. And she would write, she was in Ahmedabad for some of that time, and I was still in Bombay. And she would write to me and tell me about these boys she's meeting. And I would always find some fault with all of them. So I would write back to her, finding some fault. And so finally, we realized that we should start talking between us. And that caused a great deal of problems for her more than me, because my parents were kind of okay but her parents were not. So it was a tough battle with her parents. Well, I should say with her father particularly. I think she converted her mother or convinced her mother, but it was a big battle. And so I left for America and kept in touch by mail, by post. And finally, this conversation started. And then she and her parents came to meet my parents in Bombay. They had a bit of conversation, and then we decided that we were going to get married. This is all long distance. And so it worked out fine. I don't think her father ever got used to that idea, but he went along with it. And finally, as I said, long story short, we got married after she finished IIM, which was 1 year already I was here, and I came back just for the summer. I came back just actually for a few days during the summer vacation just to get married. And we got married in 74, so May of 74. So that's why I said 51 years is complete now, because in May of 25 we celebrated our 51st anniversary. So it's been quite an adventure. She's an IIM graduate as well. So she knows all about argumentation and discussion, and we have a very lively marriage, let me just say, because she doesn't take any nonsense from me. But that's the way we are comfortable.
Yeah. So after IIM journey, you decided to go for foreign, for a higher education. Okay. So there you completed MPhil and PhD from Columbia University, New York.
Correct.
Why don't you think at that time, why don't you choose the Indian universities for this PhD kind of things?
Say that
Why you
again,
went
please.
to foreign?
No, say that again.
Why don't you choose Indian university for PhD kind of thing? Why did you apply for the
Indian
foreign
university?
university?
Indian universities? Because there was
Yeah.
none. There were no
Okay.
PhD programs in India in business at that time. I
Okay.
had no desire to leave India. I had no desire.
Okay. Okay.
There were zero PhD programs. The only one that came close was IIM Ahmedabad itself, which had something called a Fellow of Business Administration, which was
Okay.
trying to mimic Harvard's DBA program. And I applied for that. I did. I got in. And the same professors, the first graduate hadn't even graduated yet. The first person he was years away from graduation. We didn't know that at the time. But he was in the program, and he hadn't graduated yet. So when I said it was new, it was really, really new. And it wasn't a real PhD program either. So the same professors who gave me admission
Okay.
had a little conversation with me and said, look, you've taken all the advanced marketing courses we have, because I had. I did the MBA courses and I took advanced marketing courses and so on. Said, we don't really know what to do with you, basically, because you've taken all the coursework. So
Okay.
they suggested that I go to America. And many of them had American PhDs. So they said, we will write like recommendation letters for you and so on. So they suggested that I go to America. There were no alternatives in India. There was, to the best of my knowledge, there was not a single PhD program. There may have been somewhere, but I didn't know of a single PhD program in marketing in all of India.
Okay. Okay. That's great. Means your professor suggested to go to the foreign for the
Correct.
further
My
education.
own professors at IIM not only suggested, they persuaded me, and they said that they will write letters for me. I didn't ask them for letters. They told me that they will write me letters.
That's great to see that time. I think so. Yeah, that's really great that you got
So,
admission to the MPhil and PhD from Columbia University in New York. Yeah.
but interestingly, let me tell you that story also because it's useful for other people. When I was
Yeah.
applying for admission, I applied to 7 programs.
Okay.
I applied to 3 state universities which were very low in the ranking. Not very low, they were good in the ranking, but lower than some others.
Yeah.
I applied to 3 Ivy League schools. And I applied to one that was of national stature that was sort of in between. So you say I sort of 3 A plus universities, 1 A or A minus university, and 3 B universities. They were B or B plus. They were still good universities.
Okay.
The first 3 letters in those days, everything was by mail. Okay, there was no such thing as email. Email did not exist.
Yeah.
The first email message was sent in 1971, and I started applying in 1972. So email as a concept existed, and certainly some scientists used email, but normal people, even professors at Ivy League universities, did not even know of email or did not use email. So everything was by hard copy, snail mail. So the first 3 letters I received were 3 reject letters from all 3 of my lowest ranked universities. So I
Oh
assumed
my God.
that I was never going to see America because those were my lowest and all 3 were reject. Then I got a telegram from Case Western, which was my middle university. Case Western, which was still a very good university, they sent me a telegram offering me admission and financial aid. And to this day, although I never went to Case Western, I have a very soft corner in my heart for Case Western because it was the first positive letter I got. And then after that, I got acceptance letters from all 3 Ivy League institutions. So I'd applied to Harvard, Columbia, and Wharton, and got admission into UPenn, all 3 of them. And of course, that was a big relief. I still don't know why 3 of the lowest of the set rejected me, but I don't care because I had a good choice of institutions. So,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
and the reason I went to Columbia, let me be clear about that also, because Harvard and Wharton had very good names. I mean, they were all top class. There's no difference between the quality. But Harvard at that time had a DBA. Actually, probably for the next 40 years, Harvard had a DBA, did not have a PhD. And in the kind of snooty ranking of academic people, a PhD is still the number one, even higher than a DBA. And so I wanted a PhD rather than a DBA. And further, at Columbia, the world famous professor called John Howard in my field, which was consumer business, consumer marketing. John Howard, you don't know if you've even heard of, but there's a famous model called the Howard-Sheth model. So he was the proponent of this thing, and literally he was the most famous marketing professor in the world, and he was at Columbia. So, of course, just his being at Columbia is no guarantee that I would actually work with him. But I had that goal, had that target. And I wrote to him from IIM when I was still a student at IIM, saying that I've got admission into Columbia and I'd like to come there and talk with you. And he never responded. So that was a bit of a turnoff, saying he must be having too many students. You know, this happens even today when you apply for PhD admissions. They may not be interested in any more students. But I went to Columbia anyway with the hope that I could convince him to do that. And it worked out. I did. I met him while, in my first week there. And he remembered the letter. He didn't never tell me why he didn't respond, but he did remember the letter. He said, "Are you the young man who wrote to me from India?" I said, "Yeah." Anyway, later we got to have a good working relationship, and I actually did finish my PhD with him. All right, let's go on.
Yeah, yeah. So just you completed all the educations in a foreign like PhD, MPhil, etc. So after completing the education, why you didn't come back to India?
I did
Or
intend to. Good point. Excellent point. I
yeah,
went to America only to get my PhD.
correct.
I did not go to America to settle there.
Yeah.
My
So what is
wife,
uh,
my wife definitely wanted to return to India. Even she, still today, she will remind me of the fact that I said that I would come back to India. So
yeah,
I did intend. So I finished my PhD, worked for a couple of years. You know, we have this practical training kind of thing and so on. Worked for a couple of years, did well, uh, and then I started doing two things. I did apply for my green card, but I also started applying to Indian business schools. Now you have to understand, at that time, there weren't too many choices in India
okay.
of business schools, of top flight business schools. So the IIMs come to mind.
Yeah,
So there was a preference at that time that if you're an IIMA graduate, that you shouldn't immediately go back to IIMA. So the alternative was IIM Bangalore. So I did establish a connection with IIM Bangalore. I actually met with the director for a formal interview. Um, but they had very strange policies at that time, because I was already, by the time of the interview, I was already an associate professor here. I'd already been promoted. And I had a good record. I was at a university called Clarkson University here, which is a Research 1 university. In America, there are categories, and Research 1 is the highest research category of you. So I was an associate professor at a Research 1 institution, and I asked the director at that time about the possibility of promotion to full professor.
yeah,
His answer at that time just blew my mind. I don't know how much detail to give because this is a public interview, but basically, let me just say that he didn't, because of bureaucratic reasons, not because of my resume. I don't want to give too much detail because there may be people
yeah,
still around who are from that period. For bureaucratic reasons, it would be unlikely that I would be considered for promotion to a full professor. And I didn't want it like tomorrow. That was not I was not drawing a line in the sand. But he didn't think it would happen for even 10 years after that, because there was someone ahead of me in that line, and you can't jump a line. So,
yeah,
I've been in America by that time for about 4 or 5 years, and even when I was in India, I had no patience for this thing. I believe in merit. If your merit warrants, then you need to. Even if you're a young person, an old person, doesn't matter to me. So I believe in merit, and he clearly did not, or he was constrained that merit was not the issue. It was just plain how many years you've been around. So I did not want to live in that environment. Now that didn't work out. Then again, I had not lost my desire to go to India.
Okay.
So then, years later, I took a year of leave from my university in America. And I actually took theoretically a year of leave, but I sold off everything I had. I had my job, but everything we had, we sold off. We packed our bags and we moved to India. And I joined a corporate environment in India and did very well. And I actually enjoyed it. So I thought, again, that's what I'm going to do, the practice of marketing in a multinational. And so, but then there was an organizational shakeup, nothing to do with me, and things happened, and that didn't work out. It was, again, I was not involved in that. It happened at a higher level than me, but it didn't work out. And so finally, after a year, we packed everything up and came back to America. So I've made two genuine, full-throated efforts to return to India in my early days. Since that time, I have been back to India for a long period of time for a Fulbright, but that was a full intention of returning to America. So yes, I did have a desire to come to India, and as I said, my wife has a strong desire to come to India, and we really gave it a try. It didn't work out.
Okay. No problem, sir. No problem. So, after all these things, you just be a president of University of West Georgia, right? So, what was that early vision and beginning? Like when you first arrived at West Georgia College in 1994. So, what was your initial impression of the place and community? So, what was the motivation for that? Like, can you little bit tell us about
So
that?
yeah, that's a fair question. So I started in an assistant professor position. I finished Columbia in 1976. So I finished my PhD in 1976, joined Clarkson University as an assistant professor, and there's a hierarchy, so the assistant professor, associate professor, full professor. Usually around the time of associate professor, you get something in America called tenure. Tenure is a big deal because it's a guarantee of a contract, ongoing contract.
Yeah.
So I got tenure at a Research One institution, which is pretty awesome. I mean, that's a good thing to have. And I stayed at that university for 13 years. So I went through assistant, associate, tenure, and full professor. All of my academic promotions and recognition happened at that one place, Clarkson University. But while that was happening, I was appointed department chair, which I really didn't want to be an administrator. I wanted to be a professor. So I said I'll do it. Then my dean wanted me to do something with graduate programs, so I was director of graduate programs and trained the graduate program thing a lot. So I enjoyed making a difference, making a change, making differences in the ways that the institution wanted. So 12, 13 years later, I had not only a reasonable, and I want to be honest, I'm not a world-class researcher, okay? I do good research, but I haven't changed the world with any of my research. I haven't. So I'm very self-aware of my limitations. So I'm okay for my level of institutions. I'm doing good research,
Yeah.
but I'm not a world-class researcher. I know that. But what I was doing very well at was making an administrative difference. I was changing things in a very positive way for the institution.
Oh.
So at that point, my wife actually suggested, and I give her credit for this, that she said, you need to start looking for a higher administrative position. If you're going to be in administration, and I was a department chair for my 13 years at Clarkson, I was a department chair off and on for about 10 years. So that was a big
Yeah.
proportion of that whole period.
Yeah.
So she said, you really do need to look to move to a higher position. And the next higher position is that of dean of a college
Yeah.
or a school. Now, there was already a dean at Clarkson, so there was no place to compete for that. So I started looking outside for dean's positions. And by that time, I had not only a good academic resume, but a very solid administrative resume. So I got some dean offers.
Yeah.
And then finally decided to accept the offer at Lamar University as dean.
Okay.
And then I went to Lamar University as dean and as a tenured professor. And about 2.5 years into it, there was some organizational shakeup and things like that. And I got pulled out of the dean's office to be made executive vice president on an interim basis.
Okay.
So that was the next step up, which was the number 2 position in the university.
That's great.
So it was interim, so I knew I would always come back to being dean. But then towards the end of that period, and that was interims are usually, just a few months. I was an interim for 1.5 years. So by that time, I had started to apply for other positions, both as dean of another school. No, I didn't. I don't think as executive VP at Lamar and as president for other universities.
Yeah.
And so I was comfortable with the idea of going back to being dean, but I was also applying for other positions, higher positions.
Yeah.
And then, actually, very interestingly, the day I was supposed to go back to my dean's office, I got a fax. In those days, things were fax. Got a fax offering me the president's position at West Georgia. So I went to my meeting with this piece of paper in my. I knew it was coming. It's not a surprise. I had gone to West Georgia, interviewed for the president's position, liked the place. The committee had liked me, and I'd gone for a second interview with the chancellor and board of regents. So I knew that it was headed in that direction. It wasn't a surprise. But so anyway, so I never actually went back to my dean's office. I got this position, and a week later, I was on the road, headed to West Georgia, and became president of what was then West Georgia College. It was called West Georgia College at the time.
Yeah. Yeah.
So my first agenda was to change it into a university. So that was the first thing I had to do at West Georgia. And there was general consensus that that's what we needed to do. The college had tried several times to become a university and had not succeeded.
Okay.
So that was my internal agenda. I couldn't vocalize it because other people above me had said, keep it quiet, don't make waves. So finally, anyway, after 2 years, we became a university, and then I spent the next 6+ years. We became the State University of West Georgia, and then finally I spent the next 6 years trying to get rid of the word state, and then we became a full-fledged University of West Georgia with PhD programs and things like that. So it took a long time. All of this stuff takes a long time. So people who come into a job saying, I'm going to be here 5 years and then get out, I don't have any sympathy for that. I was able to make major changes at West Georgia because I was president for 19 years, which was when I retired from the presidency, I was the longest serving president in the entire state of Georgia, public universities and private universities, university president, longest serving university president. And so it was quite a ride. I've seen such, people have called it transformational change, from a college to a state university to a university. When I came, there was a little over 7,000 students. When I left, it was almost 12,000 students. Rise in stature. When I left, it was what we call a SACS Level 6 university. Level 6 is the highest level of university. All the famous universities you've heard of in the southern United States are all Level 6, like University of Georgia, University of Virginia, all the privates, Emory University, all of these are level 6. So I brought it into that level 6. And when that happened, I decided it was time to
Came down.
finish my administrative career. So I told my campus that I announced it at a faculty meeting and said, this is my last year. So I will continue. I didn't just resign on that day. I will continue as president till they find another president, and then I will go back to the faculty.
But I don't think so. Like yours, they might find some president like yours. I don't think
Oh,
so.
we
That's
have lots of good presidents.
yeah,
I
that's
don't
really
believe.
challenge they can have.
But I mean, it's true that nobody, except for the very first president of what was then West Georgia College, except for him, I have been president longer than any other president. So,
Yeah,
so it's been good. I've enjoyed it, and I'm enjoying my life as a professor.
but this journey is not that easy. I think so. There must be some challenges in between.
It is a lot of
So,
challenges,
so
and
can you tell us something little about that?
yes, well, it's also you have to put this in context. So I was the first Indian
Yeah,
ever to become
yes,
president of an American university.
yeah,
And the first person always has extra challenges because there are a lot of eyes on you. People either openly or secretly say, I don't think such a guy can handle this position. I mean,
yeah,
there's an automatic dismissal of that kind of background.
yeah,
Plus, this university is located in the south, which is a little more traditional, and there was actually a strong feeling from some members of the community that we shouldn't have a non-white president. So in Georgia, not only was I the first Indian, but I was the first non-white to be president of a predominantly white institution. Now, I have to put this in perspective, there are things in America called historically black institutions,
yeah,
which are largely African American populations with African American presidents. So they have been African American presidents of historically black institutions for a while. But a predominantly white institution had never had a black, brown, Hispanic, nothing, no president except for a white president in all of history.
yeah,
So there was that feeling that how can we have a president with a name we can't pronounce and we don't even know if he can speak English? How
yeah,
can we have such a person?
yeah,
So I faced it, yes. I faced that even as dean. When I became dean, I was the first dean of an AACSB accredited business school. And that was even more apparent there because when I had applied for that position and the search committee presented, I think, 3 names to the provost, the next vice president. It was not called provost, called the executive vice president. That's the position I ultimately had at Lamar. But they went to him and said that here are 3 names, and my name was not among the list. So they shortlisted 3 people for interviews with my name not on the list.
oh,
So he looked at maybe 10 resumes. He didn't look at just the 3. And he found mine, and he found what he considered an impressive resume. So he specifically asked the committee, said, why not this person? And that was their exact response. We don't know if he can even speak English. He has an impressive resume. So, but I'm not sure, and a dean is not like, not just a professor. A dean is a very public person.
yeah,
So you want a person who be comfortable in the culture, in the language, and so on. So they didn't think that I could handle that. So, and I heard this story from both the search committee later on and the person who made that comment. So he pulled out his wallet, he put a dime, which is 10 cents, on the table, and said, okay, if you don't think he can speak English, here's 10 cents, phone it. Just pick up the phone and phone it. Now, you couldn't phone someone. I was in New York and he was in Texas. You can't phone for 10 cents anyway, but it was a gesture.
Yeah.
So I thank him for that. I mean, that was quite a bold gesture for him to do, put 10 cents on the table and say, phone it. So they did that. They said they wanted to interview me and see my views on different things, including accreditation, this, that, the other. And so I was in New York, they were in Texas, and we were having this half an hour, 45-minute long conversation, asking my views on a number of topics. And I didn't know that they really didn't care about my views. They just wanted to know if I could speak English. And so then they went back to the provost, again, executive vice president, more technical term, went back to the executive vice president and said, yeah, we will invite him. And by the time I came and my interview was over, they moved me to the top of their list. They wanted me as number one.
Nice.
So, but I was not even on the list. Not that I was at the bottom of it. I was not even on the list. And they put me at the top.
That's really
So,
great.
So yes, there have been those challenges. And well, I just have to understand that these things happen. I would not do it myself. That's why I told you I don't judge people by their age, by their color, by their gender, by anything. If they can do the job,
True. Yeah.
I want that person.
Yeah.
I have appointed senior women to senior positions. I have appointed young people. I started an academic program for students who were 15 years old coming into college. So I don't believe in age being a barrier. I've also had 15-year-olds in my class, and I have 80-year-olds in my class. So I don't believe in age as a barrier at all. I had a 72-year-old and an 80-year-old in the same class, and I was very comfortable with that.
Fantastic. I like it.
Yeah. So anyway, I've had a rich professional life and a rich personal life, and I'm very grateful to God for all the blessings He has given me, starting from my parents to my family to everything else.
Yeah. So, Professor, giving back and future plans, what are your future plans right now? Because you stepped down as a president. So, is there
My
anything?
future plans.
Yeah, future plans. Yeah.
I intend to retire at some point in the distant future as a professor. So I have no other plans. I really I'm the oldest. Well, not really the oldest in my department. I was going to say there's one person older than me, but he's an adjunct professor. I'm very comfortable with my age. So long as I'm active, so long as I'm getting good teaching evaluations in America, all courses are evaluated by all the students. So every semester I get teaching evaluations from my students. As long as they are energized by me and generally happy, I am happy to go on teaching. So I have no plans to do anything different. I am 77 years old. Almost in a few days I will be 77. I don't know. I mean, I have no real plans to retire. Fortunately, in America, you don't have to retire at a particular age. So as long as I can make contributions in different ways, I will be happy to do that.
So that's fantastic. It's really amazing, sir. Really amazing. I like that.
And I'm full of energy. To give you an incident,
That's I'm saying here also.
last year, an undergraduate student of mine and I made a joint presentation about the value of undergraduate research. We haven't talked about that, but that's my thing. My thing in education is undergraduate research. I encourage my undergraduate students. I also do it for graduate students, but undergraduate research is quite distinct and unique. So we had done some work. She had presented at a conference. I had been present at that conference. I chaired the session. when we came back to town, we did a joint session, among others, about the value of undergraduate research. So this is a small incident. I spoke first, and I gave some benefits of undergraduate research. And everyone else in the panel was seated. I stood up, and I was, as usual, I was walking all over the place. Even in class, I never stay behind a podium. You know, there are a lot of professors who lecture from a podium. I am walking all over the classroom. So I got up and I was doing this, and then this young woman, who was 22 years old, when she starts her presentation, she says, "I've got to stand up because I've got to match the energy of Dr. Sethna." So this is a 22-year-old saying she wants to match my energy. So that's good. So as long as I have the energy and the enthusiasm and the students appreciate what I'm doing, I'm happy to keep going. So
That's
age
really
is
amazing.
not, I don't get bothered about age.
Yeah, yeah. So fantastic and amazing. So just last question, then we will have a rapid fire round. So just tell me about your hobbies.
My hobbies,
Yeah.
I almost have none, because I just had a tunnel vision of, my profession and my family and so on. So I like being with my grandchildren. I have 4 grandchildren, wonderful grandchildren. I like playing with them, playing the fool with them. But so that's my main joy. Now, I never had any music in my life. A lot of people have grown up playing music, singing, things like that. I am a big zero in music. I don't know anything about music. I don't know what notes are. I don't know what anything is. But last year, about a year ago, I decided that I've got to do something different. So I started learning to play the piano.
Wow.
So
Nice.
now this 76, 77-year-old person is like a baby learning to play the piano for the
Age is
first
not a
time.
ma age is just number.
That's right. That's right. But so I am a terrible, terrible player. Obviously, at this age, but still, at least I can play something. And maybe the 10th time I try it, it sounds like a reasonable piece of music. So, but anyway, so I'm comfortable in my poor playing, but at least I'm learning something new. And they say that the brain is kept active by keeping it active, by doing the things. So I do new things. I do puzzles and things like that to challenge the brain. But now music is something that I never thought in my whole life that I would learn. And I could actually, very poorly, but learn to read music and play music on the piano. So that I hope keeps my brain active for even longer.
That's really amazing, sir. That you started at least something and hobbies.
Now, let me tell you about one other thing in my life that we haven't talked about,
Yeah.
and that is when I retired from the presidency, I started going to an orphanage in India
Yeah.
in the summer, just out of the love of it. It was not a particular program. No, there was no program. I started that thing. I didn't start the orphanage. The orphanage was a running, vibrant concern. But I started going to India. Now, since the pandemic, it has tapered off, but at least that gives me great joy to contribute to the education of people. And particularly, this orphanage is for abandoned and orphaned children.
That's really good.
And
Yeah.
the first person I met at that orphanage many, many years ago, before I started teaching, this is when I was just giving money. For a while, I just gave money. I still give money, but less. I mean, I don't do the teaching that often.
Yeah.
So the first person I met was a young girl who told me that she wanted to be a teacher of English. She could barely speak English herself, but that was her dream. And I made a promise to her at that first meeting that if that's what she wanted to do, I would help her do that financially. And while we have been talking, I have got 5 messages on WhatsApp from her. So we are still in touch. Now, this thing happened a long time ago, And I didn't interrupt, but I'm going to read that message. Wow. So this is a great way to end this thing. She says, happy to share with you my first experience as a history teacher in
Wow,
Yashodi English medium school.
that's
So
really good.
this happened just while we were talking. It gives
Nice.
me great joy to be able to facilitate something like that. So over the period, I have given lakhs of rupees to this orphanage. Some of
That's
them
great.
for education specifically, some of them for infrastructure. Some of those monies I have raised from America. Some of them are my own. So not just lakhs, but probably I would say of the order of 10 plus, 10, 15 lakhs I've given to this orphanage. I don't know the exact number, but at least 10, because that's my way of giving back. And this is an orphanage in Lonavala in Maharashtra.
Yeah, yeah. So, coming to the rapid fire round. Okay,
Okay,
okay. Are you ready?
yes.
So, number one question: what do you think about using ChatGPT? Is good or bad?
Oh, ChatGPT. I use it, but rarely. I don't use it a lot. I use it rarely. I think it's a good thing to have, but I don't think we should get too dependent upon it.
Okay. So, coming to the next question: when did you last visited IIT Bombay campus?
Oh, I last time I was there was for my 50th reunion, which took place, as I said, 51 and a half years after we graduated. Because of the pandemic, it was delayed. So that's the last time I was there. That was end of 2022. No, yeah, 2022, end of 2022.
Okay, great. So, next question: what is the intellectual curiosity from your point of view?
What is intellectual curiosity?
Yeah.
So I'm a strong believer in that. I mentioned to you earlier that I do undergraduate research with my students, and that is to create the intellectual curiosity in them. Let me make this point that most of the work we do, especially in engineering, there are answers at the back of the book. So you do your problem in electrical engineering, and then you look at the back of the book and you know the answer. In undergraduate research, there are no answers at the back of the book. You don't know the answer. Not only does the student not know the answer, the professor doesn't know the answer. So it's a
Yeah,
process of discovery, and that's what I like about it.
yeah. So next question is, what is the best gift to the student?
Best gift to the student is to light the fire. There was someone who said, I forget who it was, education is not the filling of a pail, it is the lighting of a fire. So the best gift I can give a student is to light the fire in their minds so that they can
That's
do
great.
great things on their own.
Yeah, yeah, that's great. So what's the first word that comes to your mind when you hear University of West Georgia?
Excellence.
Oh, great. Tea or coffee?
I drink neither. I don't drink tea or coffee, but that's fine. I'll go with tea.
Okay. The book that inspired you most.
Oh, the book, probably the book that I have used most often is Tom Friedman's The World is Flat. I use that to show the development of the world. So that's the book that I use most often. Say that slowly.
Howard or Howard or Georgia Tech? Which do you enjoy beating more?
So I am familiar with both places. I have two postdoctoral programs at Harvard, and both my children are graduates of Georgia Tech. It is a
Yeah.
sister institution. I love both of them. I'm not going to choose between them.
Okay.
Okay. If not academia, what career would have been
Oh,
chosen?
corporate world. I enjoyed that as well. I worked in the field of marketing in two multinational marketing companies. I enjoyed that, so there's no question I would go for that.
If you could give one piece of advice to the current IIT students dreaming of global careers, what would it be?
to be fully engaged. As I said before, whatever you do, choose only a couple of things. Don't try to do 10 things. Choose one or two things and do them second to none. Want to be the best in whatever you do. That would be my advice. Be fully engaged and immersed in that activity, whatever you choose to do.
Okay, so that's it for today.
Wonderful.
So thank you so much for sharing your inspiring journey from your days at IIT Bombay to transforming the University of West Georgia into the nationally recognized institution. Your story is a proof that vision, courage, and compassion can truly turn impossible dreams into the reality. That's
Thank
a
you very
perfect
much.
example. To our listeners, I hope you enjoy this conversation as much as I did. Remember, it's not just about the building institutions. It's all about building the people, communities,
Yes.
and
Yes.
futures.
Yes.
So, guys, until next time, keep dreaming big, daring to make differences. This is your host Dhananjay Karat signing off for now. See you in the next episode.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Bye.
Bye bye. Bye bye.